Hi everyone. I'm here with Haley and Somil. We are doing our second Facebook Live series of the season, and today's focus is going to be on the clinical clerkship. So, what's it like to be a medical student after you finish all your basic science courses? And so, to that end, I'm going to hand it over to Haley and Somil, and they can tell you a little bit about what it's like to be on clerkships.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
So we'll introduce ourselves. I'm Haley.
So well.
And we're both third-year medical students. We're finishing up our clerkship year, which is exciting and crazy. It's been a great year. And we're going to talk about what clerkship year is like at NYU, and talk about where you rotate, our experiences, what we've learned. Anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just give you a brief look into what our lives have been this last year, basically.
So NYU is on the year and a half preclinical, and then so you do a year and a half of preclinical, and then you go into a year of rotations. So midway through your second year, you start rotating. So we started January of this year, and we go to December. We rotate through surgery, OB-GYN, internal medicine, neuro, psych, peds, and then we have some time during our clerkship year where we are able to have elective time. We had a different schedule, so we can kind of talk about what we've learned from the different schedules that we had.
Yeah, so as Haley was saying, we rotate through those clerkships, and what really the schedule she's talking about is like the order we do these things in, and that's the way we get that order. Our palette is what we call it, is based on a lottery number that we get assigned at the end of our preclinical year.
Yeah.
And it's a point of contention because a lot of people seem to think that your lottery number is going to decide whether you can go into orthopedics or
or there's a lot of stress about it, but it doesn't really matter actually. I had a very low lottery number, so we'll have a little bit better.
In the middle, I was okay. I was happy with what I got.
Yeah. So that slightly changed what palettes we were most likely to get, or what schedule of rotations we were likely to be put on. I started with surgery, OB-GYN, and now I'm ending the year on internal medicine.
And I started with peds and psych. I'm ending right now with elective, selective, and neuro. And I was fortunate enough it wasn't my first choice, but I was fortunate enough to choose that because I really wanted the selective elective in the end, where I'd have most of the clerkships done and be able to choose what I wanted to see next in order to get a better feel of what I wanted to do. But like you were saying, I think if I did a selective elective in the beginning too, I think that would have been fine as well. And I don't think that any one rotation, one palette schedule would have been any different. It just, each one had its pros and cons, I'd say.
Agreed. I think a lot of the older years said this to us, and now I feel like I end up saying it to the younger grades, is that it doesn't actually matter what your schedule is. It's a long year. You learn a lot, and it in the end all works out for everyone. I think for some people, if they can schedule their selective elective time during times when they have family obligations or particular commitments outside of med school, that can be helpful. Or if they want to, start the year off with a specialty that they're particularly interested, to see if they would like to go into that eventually. Some of that matters, but in the end, it all works out for everyone. I think we've seen from our classmates.
I think an example, Haley starting on surgery, I know she wasn't too thrilled to go into that, and I think a lot of people wanted to go into it.
Yeah.
But as soon as she was done with it in mid-February, I think a lot of people were jealous of her that she got one of the harder clerkships out of the way. So
that's exactly how I felt.
It was that after the first couple months, I think you had a pretty good schedule, right?
Yeah. Agreed. Yep. I think we can share what we did for our selective
Mhm.
elective time.
Yeah.
So what are you're
So
on it
I'm
now?
selective elective right now. So we get 8 weeks of selective elective that's built into our clerkship year before we get more time after clerkship year to explore, because we do it earlier. We have more, like 6 more months before we apply to residencies to look into that more. So for my 8 weeks, I did 4 weeks of emergency medicine, a selective, which I was really interested in as a specialty. So I wanted to get a better sense of that. I did 2 weeks anesthesia, and then I took 2 weeks off.
Nice.
Thought I needed a little break.
Yeah, that's good. And like Somel said, what was nice about my schedule is I had surgery OB-GYN, which are two of the clerkships that are a little more time intensive. And then I went into selective elective time. For 4 weeks, I did a selective. You need 2 selective to graduate, and I did it in a specialty area of autism disorders. What was cool about it is it was an integrated program with pediatrics, psychiatry, and neurology, which are all fields that I was interested in. So I got to kind of do a deep dive on one diagnosis and explore different specialty areas. I did that for a month, and then I took a month of vacation. Did some traveling during that time, which was nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot of fun. Where'd you go?
I went to Peru. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Are you taking some time off?
Yeah, I'm on it right now.
No, right now, really. What's another topic we should talk about on clerkship year?
Any questions for us yet?
No questions yet.
We can talk about
The hospital
some
experience?
of the places we rotated.
Yeah.
So I'd say briefly, we're very lucky that living in New York, we got a lot of hospitals in a very small area, and most of our hospitals we rotate are just down the block from us, and they're all right next to each other. We rotate mainly at Kimmel, which is the new pediatrics hospital, and Tisch is the private NYU hospital, Bellevue, and the VA, which is all next to each other, which I think is pretty cool in the sense that our commute's very minimal for most of us that live on campus, and that we don't have to spend a lot of time, commuting. When we had to get up early for our surgery rotation, it saves us time to not wake up even earlier.
Yep.
I think that's the coolest thing for that. But then on top of just where the hospitals are and being in New York, I think that also gives us a really diverse patient population, from people visiting New York to people of all different socioeconomic statuses, and that also changes from hospital to hospital too. I speak of EVED.
I agree both of that. I think the diversity of the clinical populations you're exposed to between the 3 big hospitals on First Ave is amazing. You really get to learn how to navigate different healthcare systems, how to work different medical record systems, how to work with just different ways of doing things. I think you become more adept at figuring out how to take care of patients. I'm at the VA right now for internal medicine, and definitely a learning curve to learning how the hospital works, where to send bloods to, where to, how to write notes in the system. But I think getting exposed to different ways of doing things has just improved the learning curve for me on clerkship year. I don't know if you have some other-
Agreed. I think that, we might not end up practicing medicine in as diverse of a field, but I think if there's something about where you want to train as either a medical student or a resident, I think that it would be somewhere where you would see the most diverse diagnoses and also the most diverse patients. And I think that just being in New York and being between the 4 different hospital systems, and we do have an opportunity to go rotate at Brooklyn too for some clerkships for people that want that. But I think that has just been such a good experience. It's been really the main draw for why I think I chose to go from NYU, and it's held up as the coolest thing from being here.
I agree. I definitely agree. So in terms of what it's like working with residents and faculty, what have your experiences been like?
Yeah, so it's definitely, you know, your clinical responsibilities are definitely going to change from rotation to rotation. So I guess the biggest thing is that a lot of time you might be just working with residents, or you might be just working with faculty, and it changes from rotation to rotation. I think the cool thing is that you really learn from which rotation, what the expectations are really early on, and you have to adapt to that. And I think that's a good skill to have in terms of when you're working on a team in any clinical setting later, that you might have to adapt to who you're working with too. For all rotations too, which have been, I think, been really helpful for me, is that even if you're not directly working with faculty during like your clinical responsibilities, there's faculty mentors they set you up with for each rotation that will you meet with once or twice a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, and they'll directly teach you things or go over cases with you, or you just have a time to ask questions and get a better sense of things that you don't have time to ask about during a busy day when you're on the wards or somewhere, you're in the OR or anything like that.
Agreed. That is what's nice about each clerkship is structured a little differently, but that's embedded, like Somil said, where you have faculty mentors that kind of help you navigate the clerkship and also provide supplemental learning. And I think one of the skills which we've kind of started to bring up that you gain in clerkship year is the flexibility of rotating and changing teams. That can be really hard at first, and I think that there's a definite learning curve to, you know, figuring out you're on one team and you get comfortable for 2 weeks, and then you got to switch, and the timing of the day changes. But that is something that you get better at. And what's nice about NYU is that the residents, faculty are aware of the fact that you're changing, so people are nice about it, and I feel like accommodating to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that NYU community here is really strong in the sense that a lot of faculty come through as residents there, and residents were medical students, so a lot of them understand the experience you had, and especially with the 3-year program, even I think more residents now than ever are more medical students here, so that they're very understanding in terms of what your responsibilities are, and that you have to study sometimes, and you have these meetings here that might take you out from doing something in the wards that they might expect you to do. I think that, what was I going to talk about? In terms of like where a lot of medical students go, I think people see that a lot of our medical students end up in New York, and specifically NYU, and that maybe because of the 3-year program. But I think a lot of people, I think, as we were talking about earlier, I think the community, the NYU community, and the diversity of patients you see here is so strong that it's a draw for people to continue training here. And as I mentioned earlier, I think that you always like. I think it's very important for me, at least, to train where it's somewhere that you see as many different things as possible, so that you're ready for it when you're attending it on your own. And even if you don't see those things ever again, you'll be prepared for it too. And I think this place just offers all of that and more with how diverse it is too.
I agree. I definitely agree. Should we end by talking about how we maintain balance and wellness kind of outside?
I think it's a good way.
I mean, one way for me is, as we're kind of talking about vacations, I think when making use of the time that we have off is super important to me, and I think a priority moving forward. I think traveling is great if you're able to. I also think on a day-to-day, I just try and feel like I learn and work hard, but just have time to myself, and at some point have dinner, enjoy my time with friends and kind of hang out and just know like each day it's a good day if I learn something. What about you?
I think on a day-to-day for me, the big thing has been making sure I'm still exercising too. I think that's a good way that I can keep myself a balance in terms of making sure my health is good and also give me something else to think about when I'm doing that. So I try to allot some time each week to whether go to the weight room or go to the gym downtown at we have the undergrad gym a couple subway stops away, or even just go run in the East River or something like that. There's so many opportunities here. And this really, you might think that there's not much space, but there's a lot of opportunities to exercise and find things that you like to do that keep you in that balanced state, so you're not always like studying all the time. And you might think that you might always need to be doing something, but I think that when you are able to give yourself time for yourself, I think that makes you more efficient and then the time that you're on and working.
I agree. I don't know how you feel. I feel in this year I've gotten even closer with my classmates to the point of how to maintain balance. It's just I feel really connected to our class, and I think having friends during this clerkship year has been so awesome because you're going through all of these firsts, like the first time you're in a surgery, the first time you deliver a baby. These are all very formative experiences, and it's cool to share that with a group of people. So I think that's also how I balance time is spending time with my classmates.
Agreed. I think that the combination of this preclinical years being pass-fail really stresses this collaborative environment during the beginning when we first get to know our classmates, that by the time you get to this like graded clerkship year, that we're all pretty comfortable with each other, and we're not like we're all trying to we still have that habit of working together too. And that sense of community and camaraderie really extends past even at the hospitals too. But I think when we come home, we get to talk about it too. I think everyone has a good understanding of where everyone is willing to help each other out, whatever it might be.
I agree. I think that's it. Any last
questions?
Any questions? No. We could talk forever, but overall, it's been a really great year. We've learned a ton. I feel like at the end of the year, something that an older student told me, that as he was going through, he realized at the end of the year, wow, like it's not that scary becoming a doctor. I still have a lot to learn, but I understand the process of what it takes to become a doctor. And I feel like we're at that stage, which is really exciting, where we're not that far away. Definitely feel prepared, and you learn a ton during the clerkship year.
I think this has been the hardest year, but I also think it's been the most rewarding year in terms of what we've been able to do for patients, as well as what we've been able to learn too. And I like the older student was saying, I think that it's not that we might not have the knowledge, but we know where to find and what we need to learn to go the next step and become a physician and resident, and then next a chief resident, and then attending and whatever you dream of.
Agreed. So Dean Rivera is out. He is actually talking to some current students who are finishing up their interview day. So he's sorry that he can't say goodbye at the end of this session, but we hope you found this valuable. Please feel free to reach out to us in the comments. We're both ambassadors, so we help with the admissions process. Feel free to reach out to either of us over email. You can always email the general email address, Ask an Ambassadors. And if you have specific questions about the interview process, what it's like to be a student here, we can definitely answer those questions. But hopefully you found this useful. Thanks for joining in. Bye.